Hey now everybody, welcome to englit.org. This is Professor Island, and today we are talking about what college is and why you should care. Back in the early parts, the beginning of this country, and certainly prior to that in Europe, the primary purpose of a higher education, which was often just called college back then, was for people who were already in the upper class to work together to know more about themselves, know more about the world, and to simply prepare themselves for what they were already destined to do, which was to run the world. That means primarily white, male, upper class gentry went to Harvard College, went to Cambridge, went to one of those places. They were not there for a degree. They did not get some certificate or anything like this. They went in, they took classes on speaking, they took classes on culture, they took classes that introduced them to international affairs. More importantly, it built on an already established educational and social foundation that essentially prepared them to be the leaders of the future, and they left when they felt like it. The average stay at Harvard back in the 1700s would have been about 2 years, and that person did not get a degree. If somebody wanted to be a doctor or a pharmacist or a lawyer, they would actually go work as a young person for a doctor or a pharmacist or a lawyer, and they would eventually become that thing out of practice. People who went to Harvard and places like that were simply there to gain the experience and to become a more universal person. In fact, that's where we get the term university from. The idea that you understand more cultures, you understand the way different people think, you understand how to argue, how to reason, how to put ideas together, and how to negotiate a complex world. This kind of kept going along, and college was really restricted to this upper echelon. Minorities and women specifically were not only barred from these institutions, but when further down the line, say the 1800s, institutions became made for women and minorities, they were specific for very particular tasks. For women, they had these so-called normal schools, and these were designed to teach women how to be teachers, how to be nurses, other so-called acceptable life choices for a woman before she got married. For minorities, primarily African Americans in this country at the time, the schools that would have allowed entrance in the first place usually were technical schools. They were also linked to the normal schools, and the idea was that the person who went would learn things like agriculture, farming, technology, machinery, mechanics, these practical arts that would give them a well-rounded understanding of a job that was still going to be in the labor force. We did not see a real change in who gets to go to college and where until World War II, when the laws that had to do with segregation, with integration, were changing fundamentally because of the practicalities of having to fight a war with such a large population and the expense of having racially divided barracks, of having women and men segregated in these various areas, and things began to change. And of course the GI Bill came along and said anybody who had been in the war, you get a chance to go to college. And suddenly the college business boomed. One of the things that happened because of that, of course, is that we create a segregated college, not based on race and gender and other issues like that, but actually based on economics and ability. In California specifically, we created a three-tiered system. The three tiers are, at the highest level, the UC system. This is a state college that's designed specifically for 11% of the population based on merit and educational ability. Then you have the Cal State system, which is the next 30%, again, based on merit and educational ability. And then we have the community college system, which is open enrollment. It means anybody and everybody can go to college. We also have technological schools and technology schools at the community college level, and we also have other vocational things like nursing, the T10 program, aviation, the music program, depending on which community college you go to. Each one of them offers its own little specialty that falls under something called CTE, and it means this is non-credit, you're going to go get a skill, and then go out there and get a job. What does this mean to you? Well, you're in a community college if you're watching this, and essentially you have to decide what your role in this experience is. There are certain things that have changed fundamentally, socially, legally, that have changed what college looks like, what the college student looks like and what the college student wants to know and how they get taught. There are other things that are holdovers from this very long-standing tradition that you should be aware of so that when you join this situation, when you join this environment, you understand what you're getting into. For the standard college experience, you should realize that you're going to be taking classes and that you have to be there on time and that you have to be prepared. You have to be careful with language, that there's a very specific kind of language that demonstrates that you're an educated person, you understand what words mean, etc., etc. You also are going to be expected to demonstrate particular skills. If they say you need to be able to write a paper, you need to be able to write a paper. If you need to know that math formula, you need to know that math formula. These things have not changed in 300 years, and they're not going to change anytime soon. The other thing is you should keep in mind is that based on that very old paradigm of college, you should also be here for yourself. You should be trying to expand your world, to understand the world you're getting into more fully. And so as part of this, when you're taking that sociology class, that psychology class, that interactive class that you're like, man, how is this going to get me a job? You are learning human behavior. You're learning how people think. You're learning why people who disagree with you do so. And in doing so, you're learning how to think and you're learning how to interact with this world in a more useful and fundamental way. In the modern aspect of it, let's face it, most people now go to college coming out of high school. The vast majority of high school graduates will go to some kind of college, and the reason is because most jobs require some kind of post-secondary education. Something. Some classes, associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. That is the reality of it, which means there is higher competition for fewer and fewer places. We also have some benefits of the new world. There are new voices. It's not, reading in an English class a bunch of works by a bunch of old dead white guys. You now have a wide range of voices from various people of gender, of sexual identity, of culture, of race, of ethnicity, and all of these things, all these voices are going to be voices that you may have not heard before, maybe voices that you're very familiar with, and all of them will be mixed together, and you are going to be exposed to a wide range of ideas that may challenge you, they should challenge you, or that may support some things that you already believe. And these are the advancements that have been made in education. That also means that new material is going to be part of that, and instead of me having you read Milton and Shakespeare and all these other guys, and not that there's anything wrong with that, you're also going to read some hip-hop here and some modern stories here and some feminist literature there, and this cultural stew that you're going to be placed into is going to give you a wide experience as to the thoughts and ideas and the thinking processes of a wide range of people, the very same people you're going to meet when you get out in that world. You also are going to understand the university idea even though you're at a community college. You need to understand how math and English intersect. You need to understand how history and sociology are related to each other. And that means when you're in my class, when you're in somebody else's class, be prepared for the experience. It is not easy. It is going to be hard. It's supposed to be hard. You're supposed to get something out of it, but mostly you're here because you need to be here. And if you follow that idea, if you keep your eye on this further object of understanding of the challenge of being in college, you will find it hopefully a worthwhile, rewarding experience that not only gets you that job, it also opens up your world in a way that you find both positive and in some ways interesting and refreshing. All right? Stay in touch.